Couldn't we use the entire moon as a data center? Does the vastness of space ever scare me? Do solar systems have Lagrange points? And Q&A Plus, will we ever get to a Jetsons reality? All this and more in this week's Question Show. It's time for the Question Show. Your questions, my answers, as always, wherever you are across my channel. If a question pops in your brain, just write it down. I'll gather them up and I will answer them here. All right, let's get into the questions. R. Warren, couldn't we use the entire moon as a data center? Possibly. We're entering this age where people are starting to wonder, what could we build on the moon made from the moon? The Chinese with the Chang'e 8 mission are going to be testing out in situ resource utilization. So they're going to land a lander on the surface of the moon. They're going to ingest a bunch of regolith on the surface of the moon. They're going to mix it with some other binding agent, and they're going to start to create 3D items on the moon. And this is just a test. Can you build little wrenches on the moon out of regolith? But later on, people will be using larger 3D printers to actually make stuff on the moon. And so you can imagine this time where we are creating, say, solar panels on the surface of the moon purely out of the material that is found on the moon. There's a type of solar panel called a perovskite, and they're much easier to manufacture. On Earth, the downside is that they are sort of destroyed by the oxygen in the atmosphere, but there is no oxygen on the surface of the moon. And so you can make these perovskite solar panels on the moon out of local material. And so you can imagine there would eventually be rovers that are moving along the surface of the moon, and they are digging up regolith, and then they are baking them and putting them in a kiln and simplifying them and extracting the metals and creating glass and making perovskite solar panels, and then laying them out in this sort of trail, this poop trail of solar panels behind the rover. The thing is powered by sunlight and just drives along and just makes solar panels as it goes. You can kind of imagine that sort of future. And so if it turns out that building data centers on the moon is a good idea, there are sort of pros and cons. The con is that it's on the moon and it's very expensive and very difficult to get to the moon. But if we can set up some kind of, robot factory that builds this stuff, well, then maybe that actually makes a lot of sense. It has no atmosphere. It's exposed to sunlight for half of the time. There are places that are almost in full sunlight near the poles of the moon. There are places that are in eternal shadow that would handle cooling really well. So you can imagine you'd have a data center that sits on the top of a mountain on the moon, and then has its cooling system down in the eternally shadowed craters. And so it's able to shed all of the waste heat and be able to run its computing. And then over time, who knows what's going to happen? Then we just turn more and more of the moon into computing. There's this idea of Matryoshka brains, but essentially that, we can see some future where the most efficient thing for computing is to come up with something called computronium, that you build whatever is the most sort of efficient 3D computer. And then you just turn whatever this computer requires. Silicon requires aluminum, titanium, oxygen, whatever it requires. That material is all available on the moon. And so you can just slowly turn more and more of the moon into computronium. And you turn more and more of the moon into a giant computer cluster. So it is theoretically possible. There's nothing special about what the moon is made out of. It's just hard for us to sort of imagine doing and under our current technology. Jonathan Chamberlain, is the vastness of space and the unknown nature ever unnerving for you? I love space content, but sometimes it gives me major anxiety. I've seen people say this often. I look in YouTube comments, and when you look in Reddit, often like at r/space, there will be some comment that is like that, where someone will say, do you ever just sort of feel nervous and scared about the universe? And I don't at all, and never have. And so maybe that's why I'm so excited about it, and that's why I turned it into my job. But no, I don't feel any kind of existential dread about the universe. I feel curiosity. I feel kind of excited about the unknown and the things that we're going to discover. There is kind of a sense of this that I totally get, which is, I always mention to people that we have less time for the Earth than we thought. That the sun has been around for 4.5 billion years. It's probably going to start expanding and becoming a red giant in about 5.5 billion years from now. And so you'd think, okay, we've got 5.5 billion years. Like, that sucks, right? But of course, none of us have more than about 100 years, right? So why do we even care about 5.5 billion years? And then you say, well, actually, the sun is heating up and the amount of radiation that's falling on the Earth is increasing. And that is going to raise the temperature of the Earth over the next billion years or so. And it's going to raise it to the point that the oceans boil. And so the Earth doesn't have 5.5 billion years. The Earth actually only has about 1 billion years. And now, we thought we had 5 billion years. Now we only have 1 billion years. We feel sad, right? And that's a weird feeling, but I totally get it. And then you think about the other hard limits in the universe, maybe there's this idea of the Big Rip, that the amount of dark energy that's coming into the universe is increasing, and that per cubic meter amount of dark energy, maybe that number is going up. And if it does, then maybe the entire universe is going to tear itself apart at a atomic level in about 10 billion years. And you thought we had trillions of years, but maybe we only have 10 billion years and we'll go out in this really awful way. And so now you're like, oh, I feel sad. But even if that doesn't happen, and the heat death of the universe is what we face, that all of the stars will run out. All of the stars will get kicked out of their galaxies. When you think about the entire Milky Way will shed its stars one by one. It's dead stars, right? It's black dwarfs. After all of the stars die, they all cool down to the background temperature of the universe. There'll still be a galaxy made of all these dead stars, but then just gravitational interactions will kick out the stars one by one until they're all gone, until all that's left of the Milky Way is the supermassive black hole at the heart of the Milky Way. And then the supermassive black hole will evaporate, and it'll take 10 to the power of 100 years before it finally evaporates all of its particles. And so the universe will be cold and dead. There will be no more heat to be able to do any useful work in the universe. That is the heat death, right? It's not the death by heat, it's the death of heat. And it makes you feel a little sad, even though the numbers are incomprehensible. That, even if you could live effectively forever, you are going to have an accident in your spacecraft. You're going to have a warp core breach and you're going to die in the next, million years or so. There's just no way you can avoid this. That just random chance will eventually take you out unless you live in a computer, right? And we feel this because I think we lack context. We have no way, we know we're going to die. And when you really think about it, you are horrified. And so we don't think about it. Don't think about our own death. Don't want to think about that. But if you do think about it, you get horrified. And so there's things that have shades of us dying. The death of the Earth, the death of the solar system, the death of the galaxy, the death of the universe. And it triggers those same feelings. And my guess is that the experience that you have about looking out into the cosmos and thinking about infinity is like that same experience that you have. Imagine you're in an ocean at night swimming. You've jumped out of the side. You've stopped your cruise ship above the Marianas Trench. You've got 10 plus kilometers of ocean or whatever it is below you. And you hop out into the ocean and it's at night and they turn on all the lights on the cruise ship and you're just paddling around in the middle of the ocean in the darkness with all of this sea below you and sky above you. And you feel a little unnerved, even though it's probably totally safe, right? There's no sharks out there in the middle of the ocean. Nothing's going to bother you. You float. You know how to swim. Doesn't matter how much water is underneath you. Doesn't matter how much air is above you. You swim, but you feel a little unnerved. And so I think that's the feeling, this idea of infinity in time, infinity in space. those are unnerving thoughts. And so I don't have them. Like for me, it doesn't trigger that. But I get it. I can kind of imagine what it would feel like. Jonathan, I don't know if that's what you're going for or if that's some version of that. Please let me know. I don't feel any of that. Like maybe I'm a monster. Maybe but I just I'm so excited. And maybe it comes from knowledge. Maybe it's just like the more you understand it, the more you just see that it's all just gravity. In the same way, the more, that you understand that you're perfectly safe floating in the middle of the Pacific Ocean in the darkness. You're just floating. You know how to swim. You're fine. Boat's over there. Just enjoy your swim, your night swim, go over there. I understand how gravity works. I understand the motions of things, the timescales of things, how stars work. Like none of that feels like it feels appropriately mysterious, not terrifyingly mysterious, not eldritch horror ennui mysterious. It's time to shout out all the new $5 patrons and above. RW, Tony, James Wood, Pete Markowicz, Jeff, Crow Viking, Rajesh Keshwani, Toneline Strings, Austin Perman, and James Kennedy. Join the club at patreon.com/universe today. Ashstar, how do you stay motivated when the world seems to be turning its back on progress? I've been pretty clear that I am frustrated and a little puzzled and kind of obsessed with what I'm seeing as a pushback on really just expertise in general. And the cause of it, the heart of it, is a very cynical thing. We have seen that it is very profitable to get people to distrust scientists. People are going to be watching this video and I'm going to say global warming is happening, right? Climate change is real. I'm going to say that, COVID vaccines were effective. There is like a lot of people that makes them really angry. And that there was a lot of work being done, a lot of disinformation put out on social media platforms, put out on, alternative news channels, YouTube, that kind of thing, to get people riled up about science. And, you see a ton of the comments, the YouTube comments on my channel. And all of the science YouTubers. Dark matter is like a religion and scientists just don't know what they're talking about. It's a fudge that they've done to make up something. And you don't understand dark matter, right? And a lot of it is religiously motivated. And so you can kind of trace it back to various theologians, various people who are attempting to bring down science and offer up their religious beliefs as an alternative to science. And so since science is so effective, since science gets the job done, you've got to set up a pretty big straw man to be able to kind of tear down scientists in the minds of the people who are watching you. And I think as well, people don't like someone to say that they're an expert in something. It rankles them, bothers them. And yet, at the time of our greatest need, when we are sick with cancer or something like that, we will go see the doctor and the doctor will recommend that we follow a treatment and then we will do the treatment and we will be cured or not. And so when the stakes feel like they're low or the stakes feel like things are uncertain, then there's a distrust in science. And it drives me bananas for sure. Because science, once you know how science works, that it is very skeptical by default, that it is like Thunderdome, that scientists are constantly battling with each other, that anybody who doesn't do enough work to provide evidence for their theories, doesn't show their work, does sloppy math, bad statistics, they get found out in the end, or you hope so. And that it's other scientists that are calling them out because they have the expertise to recognize. And yet we live in this world with computers and internet and airplanes that fly and fancy metamaterials. And because of scientific progress, right, we rely on it. And so we live in this really weird place where we rely on scientific progress for our lives, for the quality of our lives. And yet that there are moneyed institutions, that there are giant oligopolies, that there are people who are paying money to make people distrust science so that they can make more profit, right? Distrust climate change so people will stop regulating oil and fossil fuels, right? And people are falling for it. And I think it is like gone beyond what the people who were trying to make people distrust science had hoped for. Right? Like they were like, yeah, get people to have questions about whether or not they should buy an electric car versus an internal combustion engine car. And suddenly people aren't taking their measles vaccines. Right? You're like, I don't think that's what they expected when they were trying to sow distrust in science, but that's what you get because if it bleeds, it leads. And so on social media, if people are making these outrageous claims, then people will, that gets more engagement. People will check it out. If people are being awful to each other in the comments, then will get more engagement. And then that will drive more people to look at it, and people will pick their side and pull out their pitchforks and start jabbing at each other. And it sucks. And I hate it. I'm sure you all have that crazy uncle in your life who has a lot of bad opinions, ill-formed opinions, right? They're ignorant and has like little tolerance for you attempting to provide some kind of evidence and rationality and reason in response. Those methods, like let's agree on a common set of facts. Let's deduce step by step what is the correct result for this. And if you've ever experienced just like having a person in your life that you were trying to have a reasonable and rational conversation with, it's really hard to do and essentially impossible. And so it's like an event horizon, right, around a black hole. And each one of these people who has been swayed by big conspiracy has fallen over the event horizon, and you can almost never bring them back. And so I had a call with a patron today, and he was saying that I was like browsing on YouTube and I was seeing a lot of videos about Comet 3i Atlas and making all kinds of outrageous claims and a lot of other stuff. And then I found your video about 3i Atlas, and you just sort of explained the science. And then I watched your video, and then I watched another one of your video, and I realized that I was kind of pulling myself out. I was dragging myself out of a kind of conspiracy rabbit hole. And it filled me with hope that I was able to influence a person to kind of come back to the side of science and rationality and reason. But how many people get a chance to do that? It's rough. And so most of them are going to be on the other side of the event horizon. And once you stop believing in a common truth, like just facts, then it's dangerous. Because people can justify their actions based on a discordant set of facts. We did this because this is true. We did that because that is true. And both people are saying this thing is true, but neither one is right, or one of them is correct and the other one is just lying, or is thinking they're doing something because somebody else lied to them. And I don't know the way out. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I know Hank Green has been doing sort of a series and thinking about the same thing, ideas out loud. Other people have been concerned about this as well. And I don't know what the answer is, and the consequences are bad, right? In terms of the new technologies and the state of nuclear weapons and artificial intelligence and viruses and various economic issues. Like we are the issues that humanity is facing are getting more complicated, more difficult, and require a higher ability to work together at a time where we are falling further and further apart. So it is definitely frustrating and troubling. So like, what can I do? I just show up and I just explain science, and I answer questions as patiently as I can, time after time after time after time, and hope that I am able to influence people one at a time to open their mind to how interesting science is, and to understand the scientific process, and to use these methodologies of being skeptical and critical thinking and reason, and use this in your day-to-day. And when someone tells you something, have that moment to go, wait a minute, that seems fishy to me. Let's look it up. Let's find the paper. Let's discuss this and push back. So how do I stay motivated? Like, I don't know, like, it's a big problem and I feel like I have to do my part. So that's what motivates me is I show up and I do it. And I hope it's going to get better, but it doesn't seem to be getting better, which sucks. Domingo Flav, do solar systems have Lagrange points? So I don't 100% understand the question, because are you saying like, do solar systems have Lagrange points with each other? Because, other star systems are going to have Lagrange points. Like the TRAPPIST-1 system is going to have Lagrange points. Wherever you have two objects that are of very different mass by about 25 times more. So a star and a planet and a moon. You're going to get Lagrange points, the same 5 Lagrange points. Like there is 5 Lagrange points between the sun and Mercury, 5 between the sun and Venus, 5 between the sun and the Earth. There are 5 between the Earth and the moon, 5 between Jupiter and the sun, always 5. And so there are going to be 5 among, a star and their planets, or those planets and their moons. But are there Lagrange points between star systems? And then the answer is no. You need to have something that is very massive and then something that is not very massive. That's when you get the Lagrange points. So star systems are roughly equivalent in mass. So they won't create Lagrange points. And they're not in orbit around each other. They are orbiting around the Milky Way. And so their distances are changing. Did you know that you can watch the same video with no ads and get a bonus question over on Patreon completely for free? We call it Q&A Plus. And this week's bonus question, when will we get that Jetsons future that we were promised? And I'll put a link in the show notes. All right, those are all the questions that we had this episode. Thank you, everyone who asked your questions into the YouTube comments, everybody who joined me for the live show. The live shows are returning very soon. I'm going to be talking about the schedule, but first, I'd like to thank our patrons. Thanks to Abe Kingston, Andrea Pedretti, Brian Bodie, Caradwin, Chuck Hawkins, Commander Bailock, David Giltonan, David Matz, Enthralla Reading and Math for Toddlers, Evan.Pro, James Clark, Jeremy Mattern, Jim Burke, Marcel Smith, Michael Purcell, NASA Ocean Guy, Nordspace, OneStepForAnimals.org. Please follow my nephew at vbrick6994, Rinkaidu, Richard Williams, Sean Sargent, Stephen from the Money, Team 49, Telescopes Canada, Vlad Chaplin, Wolfgang Klotz, and Zeldaborg Galactic Defender, who support us at the Master of the Universe level, and all our patrons. All your support means the universe to us. So as I mentioned, we are reaching the end of the summer hiatus, which means that I am going to be coming back with the live streams. And my first live stream is scheduled for Monday, August 31st at 5 p.m. Pacific. And normally I wait until after the Labor Day weekend, but I'm going to do it a little bit early. 2 reasons. One, I think I sort of did one less episode before we went on to hiatus. But the second reason is that I've got a ton of travel coming up in the fall. I'm going to be in Europe. I'm going to be in Asia. I'm going to be sort of on the road for a big chunk of the next few months. And my plan is to take all my gear. And I'm going to not only record while I'm on the road, but I am also going to try to use this proximity to other human beings to try and coordinate various collaborations with them as well. So hopefully I can do some interviews with people while I'm on the road, and that should make things better. But obviously, when you're away from your nice, cozy studio with all of the gear that you expect every week, things are going to get weird. So I promise productivity and output. I don't promise quality of video, audio, and things to happen exactly at the same times that they normally do. So we'll do the next live stream in just a couple of days, and then we will have live streams on the road where you will see me randomly in an Airbnb or in a bed and breakfast or just outside in a park. And I'll keep you posted on where I am and what I'm doing. All right. Thanks for your support, and we will see you next time.